And there's a place that I've dreamed of, where I can free my mind. I hear the sounds of the season and lose all sense of time. Feels like we're in a dream, you know what I mean.
So that was the scene last year, as everybody recalls it, and what a year it was last year. Kevin Fernandez caught this wonderful muskie. I believe that actually was 2 years ago that he caught that, and Ian caught a big one last year. Well, both of them did, but as I said, there were some sights and sounds from yesteryear. This is what it looked like this year, and I want to thank both Ian and Kevin for doing what they do best, and that is hooking some big fish. And if you're not aware of where we were this past weekend as a community, we were up celebrating our 4th annual OFC Nation retreat at the wonderful and glorious Camp McIntosh. And I'll tell you, Ian and Kevin do a fantastic job targeting these big toothy critters, and they certainly didn't disappoint. But there were a lot of other fish that were caught, lots of other great stories as well as what Ian and Kevin brought in. But needless to say, it was a fabulous weekend. And for some of us, it was a little bit longer than that. It was actually almost a week, because we got up there on the Wednesday and stayed right throughout the weekend. Weather was phenomenal. It was everything that the North typically is, all 4 seasons throughout the course of the weekend. You were bundling up, you were taking off, you were ducking under something for rain, and the wind picked up a little bit the one day. But I will say this, fishing was tough. Even though some glorious fish like these two, that's Mark and Art, they caught some beautiful smallies. And we're going to be featuring a lot of the fish that were caught throughout the course of the year as a way of looking back and helping promote McIntosh, and, of course, guests that have yet to go to experience. Some folks have been asking, Scotty, did you even fish? Did you catch anything? Yes, as a matter of fact, I did quite well. I want to thank the folks over at Go Large Fish Ruler. I got a chance to try this out this weekend, and I will say it worked extremely well. As you can see with this pike, that was a 33-incher. This was the lone walleye that I caught. I'm sure if you were to stretch that tail, it might have been 15, but it was barely 14 and a half, as you can see there. But nice fish. We ate that one, and I'll tell you, no shortage of these. I'm telling you, these slobs were everywhere this weekend. If you like smallmouth fishing, you definitely got to try Camp McIntosh. It is a smallmouth factory. That whole area, Georgian Bay and the North Channel, just phenomenal fishing. So as I said, I want to thank the folks up at Camp McIntosh, of course, Ben and Tracy that were helping out behind the scenes, and of course Tracy and Andre, our hosts. They did a fantastic job. We have videos to come, lots more content to share. And, of course, the winner of the Stella Stud, Stella Queen promo, we're going to be announcing later on tonight. I got to put the list together, but I will say congratulations live here, Jeff Lutecki. He ended up winning with 77 inches. As you can see here, 77 inches. I get that in. I got to do the rest of the board, and I will do that tonight. But Jeff caught an 18-inch bass, 11.5-inch walleye, a 24.5-inch pike, a 6-inch perch, 8-inch rock bass, and then what I'm going to talk about in Jay's segment, a 5.5-inch trout perch. You ever heard of a trout perch? I hadn't until this weekend, and then a 3.5-inch goby. You add that all up, he had 77 inches, and his partner wasn't too far behind with 64. Steph, it was an honor to meet both of them. They're a great participants in the CFN Fish-Off, and proved yet again that they are great sticks this past weekend at Camp McIntosh. So, again, Great time had by all. If you are looking to book a spot, there are not many spots available throughout the course of the year. There are obviously spots available, and it's going to be the same weekend next year up at Camp Mac. We will get the poster up ASAP so we can start booking some butts in bed. But it was an awesome, awesome weekend and week for those who were up a little bit earlier in the week. Big shout out to, of course, Shimano and our good buddy Lloyd. We handed out the last of our 10th anniversary flags to our OFC Nation and CFN patrons. We made sure that they all went home with a commemorative flag, and Shimano did the same for our roll of Power Pro. So big shout out to Shimano. And of course, the other sponsors that helped with the daily giveaways. These, of course, are all our Made in Canada tackle vendors. Ugly Boys you see there, Meeks, Angler's Choice, Limestone Lures. There was a lot of prizes available and packed up. And we did this each and every day. Gave away something at breakfast and at dinner starting on Friday morning, and we went right till the end of the weekend. We gave away some great, great stuff, and our community was very appreciative of it, and of course, so are we. Thanks so much, sponsors, for doing your bit to help make it an incredible, incredible weekend. Let's have a look and see who's with us tonight, because we do have a lot. There's the man that holds down the fort each and every time we put on one of these events. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. Tony's in the house. How you doing, Tony? Richard Dunlop. Yeah, baby. Eve's here. How you doing, Eve? Joe's with us as well. Nice to see you, Joe. Lloyd, obviously, thanks. Big shout out. Thank you for all of those incredible flags. As I said, we gave our last ones out up at Camp McIntosh, and all of our worthy CFNers are waving that flag proudly. Gary, how you doing? Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Thanks so much for joining us. James is in the house. Nice to see you. There he is. Now, I can say this now because we were joking about it, but Mike and I have made several errors with Stefan. We thought at one point that Stefan was a young girl, a young angler. So you are a champ, my friend. You are a true champ. Thanks so much for being so kind and understanding. But to finally meet this man, boy, did we ever get it wrong. But anyway, Steph, thanks so much for joining us, dude. You were a treat to hang around, and you shared some good stories. So we want to thank you for that. But just a gem of a lad. So was Jeff. We look forward to seeing them again next year. And of course, Jeff was the winner of our Stella. We will be announcing the other winners, and a big shout out to, of course, those folks up there. Shimano couldn't have done any of this without their involvement. So thanks so much for your generous donations. Luke, how you doing, buddy? Nice to see you. Buns in the house. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Christian. Yes, sir. We got the family. We got the boys, the De Silva boys with us. Steven, how you doing, buddy? Well said, Luke. I can't say. Yeah, as I said, George, trout perch was not something that we expected to see. I have never heard of it. Jay's going to talk more about it in his segment, so stay tuned to that. Yes, Dave and Jeanette, we finally got to meet these two, and it was long overdue. These two have been instrumental when it came to some of our fundraising that we've done here at CFN, and we heard a little bit of the struggles that they've had with their young son. Just class act people, man. We CFN is a great place, and it's because of people like this. We look forward to seeing Dave and Jeanette back there again next year. But thanks so much for joining us, you two. You were a treat. You were a treat. We really appreciate that. Adrian's in the house. How you doing, Adrian? Again, thanks so much to you, my friend. Adrian's Custom Tackle was given away to many of our CFN community members up at Camp McIntosh and, of course, Horwood Lake Lodge at our other retreat. So, again, appreciate it. Can't thank you, sponsors, enough. But last but not least, I wanted to take a moment to celebrate something that was really cool. And for those who joined us this weekend, you totally understand what I mean. We all love to see great pictures like this, but this was the key takeaway from this weekend. Her name is Brooklyn Hyben. She's been a CFNer ever since she could walk. She joined us up at Camp McIntosh. She's been involved in our CFN fish off many, many years. And this lovely girl did a fantastic job, a very competitive job, I might add, keeping up with the big boys. And this is how she did it. We nicknamed her Doc Spider. So this is Brooklyn Doc Spider Hyben, and this was her office. And she conducted business like no other. She actually had us pretty convinced that at some point, I think it was after the first day, we thought she might win this because she had amassed 5 species the first day, 5 species. And of course, it was the combination of the longest of those species that would be celebrated as our Stella Queen, our Stella Stud. Brooklyn came so close. And in the end, the boys, they steamed ahead. And unfortunately, I believe Brooklyn came in 6th place overall. So again, nothing to be ashamed about at all. But what the coolest thing was, there weren't hardly any walleye caught. I managed to catch one. I think somebody else may have caught one, but I think there was only 3 walleye caught. Maybe 4. Maybe there was more than that. Yeah, maybe it was 4. Anyway, needless to say, not many walleye were caught. But this girl right here, as we would steam out and travel, and find in search of mid-lake humps, weedy shoals, all kinds of structure. We were spending a lot of time covering a lot of water looking for walleye. And this girl had a jig with a worm at the end of the dock and caught the largest walleye. It was 12 and a half inches long, but it was long enough to be our biggest walleye. And I want to thank and say this on behalf of Shimano as well as CFN and OFC Nation. Congratulations, Brooklyn. You took home a brand new Noski for winning largest walleye. That's awesome. Pretty cool when you can do that for an 11-year-old girl. I think it's just so cool. And we were so happy. I want to say this had the biggest cheer at the end of the day, but lots of memories that were shared, lots of great stories, and we are extremely lucky to have some great people involved and contributing in our community. And I will say this, Brooklyn, I'm really looking forward to seeing you back there again next year because you were an absolute treat. Just looking at some of the comments. Yes, it was very fitting. And yes, she definitely won. The memory she will take away. That absolutely, Jeanette. I couldn't agree more. It is, Richard. It really, I don't know, man. It was the best takeaway of the whole weekend. Watching Brooklyn conduct business off the edge of the dock and what business she conducted. So congratulations to Brooklyn. Really looking forward to next year. And again, we will announce the dates. We will get some kind of promo logo up, some kind of graphic to make sure that we announce it properly and get folks booked. But I will say this, half the camp is already booked because they're returning from this year. That much I can guarantee you. All right, enough of that. We are in the midst, obviously, of getting caught up, being back from the retreat. The CFN Fish-Off prizes will soon be launched. Brad has already made an announcement for our Made in Canada tackle shows for 2026. So head on over to the Made in Canada tackle show Facebook page if you want to find out when those events are, where they are, and how close you are to them so that you can hopefully join us. Outside of that, let's get to our beloved panel. I'm really looking forward to talking to the lads tonight. First one up is Big Jim.
When he was born, he tried to reel in the umbilical cord. Bass named him as their personal best. His power pole came with a stripper. Forward-facing sonar uses him to find fish. Chuck Norris is his co-angler. He is the most interesting fisherman in the world. Stay fishing, my friends.
Yo.
Yo. Jim, now listen, you've done a lot of this in your time, giving away prizes and special things for kids. I know the joy you enjoy from that. I know the joy you get from that. And I'll tell you, it was a joyful moment to be able to hand that over to Brooklyn.
Hey, I'm gonna get a rod for Brooklyn to go with her reel.
Oh.
I'm all out. I've given away everything I had to give away this year. I'll shake somebody down for a sample.
Well,
I'll
that's
get her
awesome.
something, and I don't know when she'll get it over the winter. Probably, I'll probably pass it
Yeah.
along at something in the show, but she's probably not going to be fishing much this year anymore. So I will see. Do you know where she lives?
Yes. And I asked her dad, but I want to say it's oh my lord. No, I'm not gonna guess. Because I'll get it wrong. But it's down. I want to say it's down like Jay Barnucz's way. That's
Yeah.
what I'm believing. So yeah,
We'll
not
find a
too
way
far.
to get it to her. So you let her know that
Yeah, we'll do.
I will have her covered before the ice is gone.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Jim, I have to ask, what have you been up to, my friend?
Not much. Working on the paper.
Yeah.
It's all done. Everything that we have to do is done. We're just waiting for 2 or 3 ads to come. And they just show up and they go click and they're in the spot,
Right.
and it's done. So it should be done tomorrow. And we'll take her from there.
That's awesome. Right on. Are we maybe doing some fishing soon, you and I, buddy?
Well, I was the way you guys started tonight, you dissed me for about 5 minutes by not bringing me up.
But you completely redeemed yourself, dude. And I didn't see you up there. And then when we brought you in, that's the whole reason we're late. So I'm not blaming Jim, but it was a great discussion that we had just before we went live. And we will be talking a little bit about that, as you have mentioned it.
It's the inside joke. It'll go forever.
Jim, I have to say, every time I visit this area of Georgian Bay and Lake Huron, whether it be the North Channel or down here at Camp McIntosh, I'm always amazed at the number of smallmouth that are caught. But
up there, Georgian Bay and that whole area, that's one of the last untapped areas.
Yeah,
like you see the tournaments they're holding up there now, the Georgian Bay tournaments. The guys are commonly coming in with 25 pounds, so they're catching 5-pounders like I won't say a dime a dozen, but they're catching them through there. I don't really think they've tapped it yet and figured out how to do it so much.
Right.
They will. There's no ifs, ands, ors, or buts. That circuit that's up there is growing real quick,
mm-hmm.
and it's only a matter of time. It's not going to compare to Lake Ontario here, but it's something. It's fierce. I know guys that that have a hard time fishing here. They find the water too big, and it's not that Georgian Bay isn't big, but they can sort of find big close up there. They don't have to travel like in Lake Ontario here. When you get a west wind, it blows from Hamilton to Grenadier Island at the mouth of the St. Lawrence. It's no fun being out there,
No. And, obviously certain areas of Georgian Bay, it's not fun to be out there as well. But I caught myself doing this a lot this weekend. And I have to say, I'm going to blame this on you. And it's a good thing to blame on. How many fish that I caught that I looked at their mouths to see if they had any kind of hook marks?
No.
None.
Not up there. No.
Not a one. Not a one.
No.
Incredible.
It's not pressured the way that it is down here. So I fished 2 or 3 nights out here in the back, and I got to get in the habit of get back to posting from out there. I had some people send me messages and say, "Hey, how come you don't post pictures from out back anymore?" But the way every fall, the end of September, I always talk about the pike.
Yeah.
I don't know where they come from. I catch a bigger pike out of the lawn chair here, at least one in the next 2 weeks, that will be bigger than anything I've ever caught in the lakes here in the 10, 12 years I've been here.
Wow.
I will catch it right here in this dirty little bay. So I get out there the other night. I go down there. I tie on a world crank with the flash in it, and I put on a bubblegum weapons of mass destruction chatterbait.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Down there, and I make a few casts around. I take out the crankbait. I throw it out. I catch a little pike about 2 pounds. I go, oh no, here it goes. It's going to start. So I unhook him, throw him back in, make a few more casts. I'll get out the chatterbait. So I make a few casts around. I catch one about 5 pounds, like a decent one, 5 pounds.
Yeah.
And then they jump in like hell.
Nice.
I let that one go, throw him back in. About 5 minutes later, I pick up the crankbait again, and I start fishing with it. and I catch the same little 2-pound pike that I just let go. And I'm holding them like I've got him in the death grip to get the crankbait
Yeah.
in his lip, and I see the cut where I had taken the hook out of the other side, and this one was in the corner on the opposite side. It's the same fish.
No way.
It was a fresh cut. You could still see it a little bit. It was still bleeding.
Right. Right.
12 minutes later. But then just about 10 minutes before it would get like dark, I made a cast up toward the back, like over toward the other dock. And I'm bringing it across right in front of the boathouse. And the whole time I've been sitting there, I'm going to assume there is a giant northern sitting right in front of the boathouse. And it shoots out and grabs the chatterbait, goes around in a circle in front of me and jumps. It's probably, I'm thinking, close to 40 inches.
Wow.
This is by far the biggest one I've ever seen here, by far. So I hit the free spool right away because I don't see the chatterbait. Braid and teeth doesn't last. So it does its thing for about 3 minutes. I'm not pressuring it. I get it to the side, and I thought, the water's down to the fall level now, so it's like 2 feet to the top of the dock. So I'm not swinging him in, and especially not on a chatterbait rod,
Yeah.
And I'm looking at figuring what to do, and I'm thinking to myself, do we leave that big Frable net in the boathouse last year? I wasn't sure. I thought, what's in the grass? So anyways, I'm trying to figure out how to put $1,000 rod and reel down and get something on top of it so I can't leave it and it pulls off, eh? And I had him right at the edge, and I was looking at him, and I'm getting my phone out to take a picture of him in the water. And he jumps right beside it, and he slams his head on the side. And when he does that, the line just pulled, and he was gone.
Oh.
Yeah. So I dug out my little single strand leaders. I have those little weenie ones, that are like 6 inches long.
Yeah.
That single stuff from Stringies, but that is by far the biggest one I've ever seen here. And then 2 nights after, I got two. One was I got 2 pike. I got 2 pike. They were both about 3 or 4 pounds, but they were fat and healthy. Like, that beautiful green with the big white dots.
Yeah.
They didn't look anything like the ones I caught the first night.
Wow.
So anyways, now I've caught 9 pike since I caught the first ones.
Wow.
Just with an hour in the evening off here. I don't know what it is about them coming in here, but I have pictures of me with 8 and 9 pounders down there, and I show them to guys and they don't believe it. And I say, well, look, you can see the seawall. You can see the steel. It's there's no fib. It's just amazing how these fish come in here like what kind of a season. I want to know where they come from, because nobody catches them out here.
Oh, really?
In the lakes. That's what I say. I've never caught one. The biggest one I caught out there, I caught with you that day.
Yeah, I was going to say that one that you caught was a nice fish.
Yeah, and that's the biggest one in 11 years here that I've caught out in the lakes.
Interesting. Well, it'd be interesting to find out what that is, what the anomaly is there. But I'll tell you, the migration of fish is certainly on. We saw piles of bait fish that are starting to move into the shallows. We had an infestation of perch right at the dock, as Brooklyn can attest. Amazing to see the number of fish that have already started to make their way up the river and at the base of the rapids. And I understand smallies love fast moving water, but I wasn't expecting to see some of the fish that were caught. Brad, our boy from Powell Castings, caught some decent bass. One of them, I think, was 19.5 inches right at the base of the fall.
Yeah. Well, there's a movement of largemouth bass upstream too. It's only in smallish rivers.
Yeah.
Like it used to happen in the Mississippi River outside of Almont here.
Okay.
It used to go in the fall early, and guys used to say, "What are you going for? The walleyes? There's no walleyes there now." I said, "I'm not going to catch walleyes. I'm going to catch largemouths." Right. And like you're anchored 20 feet below the dam because there's flow, but it's not anything that's going to bother you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're anchored there, and you're throwing a flipping jig out, and you're catching largemouths that are 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds, like one after the other.
Yeah.
And there's a movement that 2 weeks before that you would have had to go a few hundred yards, but there's something, I'm sure it's bait fish movement. There's something that pushes those largemouths to that current, and the linders have talked about this often too.
Interesting.
Often happens in smallish rivers. It's really, really a cool, like smallish rivers that have largemouths.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool when you do have them, because there's I don't know. There's some weird things that go on with fish movements that I don't think that even science can really explain.
100%.
It's or hasn't had the time to yet.
No,
Kind of stuff.
exactly.
It's neat.
It is, and it was cool to see. As I said, we were at the base of the rapids, and we caught one fish, hoping that we were going to catch some walleye. Didn't get any walleye there. It's not to say that they weren't, because I do believe either Jeff or Stefan caught them. But something did happen that was pretty interesting. While we were there, Brad and I saw a boat that started to appear at the top of the rapids, and they walked out, and they started surveying the rapids. And I leaned over to Brad. I said, dude, I think they're going to shoot the rapids. And he said, well, what kind of boat do they have? And I said, well, it's got it has a windshield. So I think it might be a runabout. I don't know. I have no idea. Anyway, they finally climb back in it, and they start to move towards the rapids. And this gentleman, as I said, I right away, I did. And all I can say is, if you can hear the thuds, if you can hear them, then they're going to run right up your back like it did mine. But have a listen to this. Oh, he just went over rocks. Oh my God. Oh. Bang, bang, bang. Oh.
We're impressed.
Brad and I were impressed just from the cojones that this gentleman had to go down. But as you saw, 3 times it bounced off those rocks.
Yeah, you could see once it went at the beginning, it went right up. But it's a jet boat, eh? And a lot of times they've got hulls that are designed to do that, eh?
I will say this: if you are in the market for a boat that you aren't going to worry about the thickness of the aluminum, or what kind of damage or whatever it can take, the mini jet, I believe, is what this thing is called, and that may even be the owner of the company itself. But I'll tell you, not only did they shoot the rapids going down, but they did a fantastic job going back up it. I don't believe they hit one.
I think
rock.
it might be easier going back up.
It could very well be,
because you're not coming down. You're forcing your way up, so you're not going into the water. I had no idea, but I was in one out in British Columbia once. I forget the river. It's something. It was way up in the interior of British Columbia.
Okay.
And the water was not that low, but they drove us. We went around bends, and then we actually, a couple of places, the boat literally just slid across gravel.
Right.
The water was this deep, and if it wasn't for the force of the jet at the back pushing, you would have stopped, And he told us, hang on, because the boat's going to come to an abrupt stop, or not stop, but it's going to slow down quick. And oh my God, it was one of those beautiful sunny fall days. It was just wild. We saw bears eating salmon and all that stuff. Right?
That's awesome.
I didn't give a damn. That boat was coming. We were watching these 2 bears at the bottom of this one little set of rapids.
Yeah.
And we're coming down, and I says to him, hope the boat don't flip here to get me. They'll eat for a month of salmon. We're laughing and everything, and then the boat gets turned sideways for a second. I thought we were going to have to swim past these bears. They were huge, and they're just grabbing a salmon and just tearing the meat off, like the skin, and gnawing on it. They start right at the head and go right down.
Incredible. Well, we had the luxury of seeing some wildlife up there as well, and just as you mentioned,
what was their name?
This Jim,
it'd be a lady bear.
Well, let's assume that it's not. Let's just assume we don't know what the identity is. But I will say this: we were not far away from it. Brad and I were very, very close, as you could see. But it was a big bear. I don't know what the weight would be, but
that's Dolores.
That's Dolores, all right.
Hey, speaking of bears, the way the main street in town here goes when you turn right at the Legion there?
Yeah.
You can follow Main Street all the way along, and then it comes out to the highway if you don't go straight up.
Yeah.
There was a big sow bear there last Friday night.
Wow.
The guy got a picture of it. It's standing right underneath the sign, Sealy's Bay this way.
No way. Wow.
Yeah, so that's like what, 500 yards from my house?
That's incredible.
Yeah. Was
That's
headed
incredible.
the other way toward the pit. That's good.
Well, as I said, it was a fun weekend had by all. The weather certainly cooperated. It was cool to see, the wildlife that we did.
Yep.
One thing I do want to mention, and I don't need to mention it to the people here. We always seem to mention it to the wrong people. On the way home, all of a sudden there was a cluster of traffic. People were parked over on the median, and it looked like perhaps an accident had happened because I couldn't really tell, but everybody was stopped to a halt. There was probably 18 cars on the southbound traffic, on the southbound shoulder of the highway, and then probably 11 cars, say, on the northbound. Finally, I figured out what was happening, and there was a moose in the marsh off the side of the highway. I thought, I understand what people are doing. I totally get what you're
trying
doing.
to kill himself.
But at the end of the day, everybody's now got to slow up, and like we got to be smarter. We got to be smart. Wildlife is great, but we don't have to risk everybody's lives to try and capture that awesome picture.
And that's where it happens.
Oh, Jim, I don't know. I hope that, knock on wood, I hope there wasn't an accident. But you want to talk about the perfect condition to cause one? This was it, and it was right at the down slope of a hill. Both sides, you had blind turns to the trough of this hill. It was a recipe for freaking disaster. So again, I know I'm saying it to the wrong people, but if there's wildlife at the side of the road, don't stop. Especially up there. Folks that know that stretch of the highway, there isn't much of a shoulder to begin with. So anyway, I digress. But yes, lots of wildlife, lots of fun,
I hear you.
Lots of fish. Jim, is the winter or fall edition of Just Fishing almost? Wow.
Almost. That's what I was saying. You were just waiting for some meds.
Nice.
It'll be done. And the time I've bbeen spending in the office here, bugging people and spending emails, I've been tying lots of stuff to go on Dadsons.
Yeah.
These are a couple of the new ones.
Oh, nice.
So this one, obviously, the one at the back is separate, and this one up the front, I just got them on the wire, and they have to be rigged and weighted and everything. But that's a couple of them there. This one will be going up to Pete Bosselman to tie up.
Nice.
Made a giant, and I have a few more here. I have a lot more actually. These were a couple that I made. One's all orangey colored.
Yeah, that's sweet.
And then the one at the back here is all browny colored, and it's got the one piece fell off, but up at the front here, it's got the bit of reddish on there. And the guys at Dadson, what is it they call that? I forget. They have a name for wood duck, they call it. I don't know how they came up with that. I don't hunt. Is a wood duck brown and red? I thought a wood duck.
Yes, I was literally just gonna say that. That literally looks like a wood duck. Like all the
I thought they were brightly colored, but
wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So anyways, that's some more of them done. I just waiting to getting all the thread sealed up, but they'll get it all epoxied over and everything. So get them dried out, put them out in the mail. I can't put them in the mail tomorrow. Oh, I can't put them in the mail at all, can I?
No. Yes, we
Forgot
don't.
about that. That's not good. I know a couple of people got small businesses, and they've already established a couple of other accounts with parcel people in that.
Yeah.
And they're done. Like they make their living doing that, and their living just went down 80%. I have one guy that I know that ships a lot of plastic, and he's got these 3 big bins. Those bins, those white bins, so sort of, ghosty white colored.
Yep.
Got 3 of those, and they're usually, pretty well full after a week for him to ship. And he sent me a picture the other day, and it was 3, and they were going by courier.
Well, and it was discussed. Brad and I were talking about it. I mean, this could literally dissolve the door-to-door delivery of mail that Canada Post has been traditionally known for. This could be the end of it right here. If we can't get any kind of contractual agreement or any kind of movement from either side, this could be it. This could be the end of Canada Post as
well. If it was a business, it'd be bankrupt and gone, eh?
100%.
So that's 100%. The bad part about it. But it's one of those things like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. How do you fix it?
100%.
So,
Well, Jim, it might be this weekend that we get together because I do have.
The weather looks killer.
Yeah, it does. I start on call soon, not too soon from now. So, or sorry,
I was going to suggest is maybe you come over Saturday morning
okay.
and we fish Saturday afternoon. You stay Saturday night for dinner, fish half the day Sunday, and go home, so you don't have to worry about Friday and getting here at 9 o'clock at night.
Sounds good. Yeah, that might be a plan.
And I'll throw that out there.
Right on, dude. Well, either way, it's going to happen this weekend because it can happen next weekend. I'd rather get up to see you before all the leaves fall. Never mind turn color and the snow.
A lot of it's still. And hey, there's another funny thing. There's there's a picture of me used in CFN where I'm holding about a 3-pound largemouth with a chatterbait in its mouth and the big giant red tree over my shoulder.
Yep. Well,
the leaves off that tree are gone.
Wow.
They were bright red as ever. And I went back there this morning, like I was out for about 15 minutes this morning. I just went and dropped some stuff off to a guy. I met him at the corner here. And I couldn't believe it. I'm coming back down. I'm looking for the red tree. And I thought, what the hell? And the leaves are all laying in the bush and they're gone. And the memories are coming up on Facebook now for me almost every other day.
Isn't that
of last fall being out there?
Isn't that something?
And yet it's been this warm.
Yeah. Oh, and the weather on the weekend, did you see some of the weather? 30 degrees, 29 degrees. I think it's going to be hot.
Yeah.
Oof,
it's pretty cold here tonight, only 13.
Yeah, it's
the end of September.
Yeah,
we haven't had frost yet. We came close once.
Yes, we have.
Yep. We had like the dew was so heavy it was stupid. It had got down past that temperature, but I don't know. That's another thing we'll never explain. Why the you do? Because everything just got blown away again this year.
100%. Well, I'll have to make sure I retie and get ready for this weekend then, Jim, because as I said, everything's come home from camp.
Trainer leaders, we're not bass fishing. I'm a bum. We're going pike fishing. They're easy to catch now. Put the sit out in the back. We'll anchor in the middle of the bay. When they come to arrest us, we're done.
Yeah, save me a seat. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun as always, Jim. Looking forward to it, and we look forward to you each and every Monday. So thanks so much for doing this and everything that you've done for our community, for our industry. You are a true GOAT legend.
I love it, buddy.
Right on, dude.
Yep.
You have yourself a great week. We will be in touch. And
be good, kiddies. Put your friggin' life jackets on.
Amen. We will.
You're about to hear about that.
Yes, you are. Right on.
Big time.
We got Lawrence coming up right after a word from our sponsor. Take care, Jim.
What is Flash Boost? Shimano designed innovative Flash Boost technology. It keeps flashing, which attracts fish whether in a pause or while retrieving. The mirror plate, which is fixed by a spring inside the body, vibrates with the lure action to generate diffuse reflection. Even if you stop the lure action, the inner plate will move and continue to flash, giving the lure a sense of life and inviting a fish bite. This is Flash Boost.
And as always, this is Lawrence Gunther. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
You know what? Well rested. Feeling a sense of success because of the weekend that was, and of course all the folks that came up and enjoyed themselves. But it is interesting to get back to the grind. I never look forward to going back to work after a bit of a hiatus because you're behind the 8 ball, and you spend at least the better part of a week trying to get caught up. But I digress. At the end of the day, it's all worth it, and I love every minute of it. Every single minute of it.
Yep.
Was talking to a gentleman today at work who was talking about the salmon fishery out in Lake Ontario, and didn't really understand where it all came from, how it all came to be, and how is it that we have such great salmon fishing. And I said, what's really interesting, and he didn't know this because he just assumed, like everybody, that the West Coast, when it comes to salmon, there are certain areas, as we've talked about in your segment, that are in trouble, that we are concerned about. And I would say, all in all, the Great Lakes fishery in comparison to BC, although it would never have been thought or suggested as such, but I'd have to say, could an argument be made that the Great Lakes salmon fishery is actually in better shape than the BC fishery?
I think if you look at each one as an independent whole, right, and then you not the size or the numbers, but just the quality of fishing and the access to fishing. Lake Ontario has got something on the West Coast, because there's nowhere on Lake Ontario where you go where it's not going to be allowed to go salmon fishing, right? I mean, there's a few sanctuaries along the rivers where you're not allowed to fish, but for the lake itself is 100% open. You go where you want, you catch fish, you've got a good limit. There's long season. So yeah, we're spoiled. We're spoiled, and I'll get into more of this, but it's my topic of the day is what's happening on the West Coast, and yeah, we're really spoiled on Lake Ontario.
We certainly are, and we're seeing the run in I'd want it's on full display, and most, if not all, creeks and rivers right now on the North Shore of Lake Ontario have had at least one run, and perhaps have a continuous run still going on. But there's a real strong wave of those first fish that come in, and we're still seeing great concentrations of them continuing. So again, I don't know, like it's remarkable to see the amount of natural reproduction going on with these fish.
Even after they've spawned and they're black as charcoal and they're emaciated, you can still catch them. It's, people are still in there in January wading through the ice and still catching these salmon that are up there. It's just before they give up the ghost for the, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. It's almost, when they brought those salmon, put them into the lake, we had 100 years of almost desolation in that lake, almost nothing because of the sea lamprey. And then they just brought a whole new life. And then that, the coho and the chinook in combination with the controlling the sea lamprey, finally, after 100 years of them running amok and wiping everything out, it was just like a brand new start to life, right? It's just a whole start over.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen out west. And I know you have a lot to talk about in regards to what is going on out there. Yeah. But I believe that killer whales or orcas are back in the news in relation to salmon, and how that's going to affect the recreational fishing for these fish.
Yeah,
so I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, it's not so much in the news, but it's certainly making its way through the word of mouth and social media. But the mainstream media itself you got nothing to report. They're not reporting, for like, I've been covering this, the story of BC salmon for close to 15 years.
Yeah.
And you can't cover BC salmon without, talking about those southern resident killer whales.
Right.
I'd say about 15 years ago, there was maybe 110, 120 of them. Now it's down to 75. And because there's this is the polar bear, the Coca-Cola polar bear of climate change, right? These southern resident killer whales. It's like, they're like the canary that everyone watches. People pay good money to go out on these whale watching boats. It's a super popular activity, both on the Washington and the Oregon and British Columbia. Just lots of people heading out on those boats to go see the southern resident killer whales. Their stories have been written, fictional books, all sorts of, tons and tons and tons of podcasts. And these, the plight of these whales, they don't live there year round, but they come in the summer and they have, they give birth there, I think. And, and so we hear about that, and we hear about the things that happen to them, and but so they're really just the poster child of nature versus what we're creating, because this is all happening in a part of southern British Columbia where there's a tremendous shipping, ferries of all sizes, yachts of all sizes, pleasure boats of all sizes, commercial fishing and recreational fishing. There's tons of stuff happening there. And it's all, all this activity, this human-made activity, and problems.
Yeah.
being introduced to the water there. And then you have these killer whales that just, this is our territory. We always come here in the summer, right? This is where we come. This is where we hang out. And it's just a conflict, right? There's this conflict happening, and the whales are diminishing in numbers every year, and it's in the news all the time. And it seemed like it's like, if we can't get this right, if these whales all disappear, then we failed. We failed as a country. We failed as a society. It's being put to us, right? So it's all hands on deck. Everyone's got to do what it's going to take to make this happen, to save these whales. And but who's gonna take the fall? And that's the question.
Well, I guess this is the thing, and of course we've talked about this before, and there has always been a concern for the killer whales. That is why salmon really has been protected the way it has, because we've been concerned about their forage. Now, on a side note, what is becoming more of a nuisance? I know that there was a few killer whales, especially one young killer whale that was in the harbor, that those who ran charters and guide companies would have a hard time reeling in fish because they were constantly being harassed by the orcas. But now, lately, I've been seeing a lot of footage when it comes to the sea lions. That it seems every salmon that comes up, a sea lion is not too far behind.
Well, it's a pinch point, right? Like if you have the big open ocean and you go to try to catch a salmon out there as a sea lion, who's faster? But then you got this pinch point where they come into the rivers to spawn, and then, normally they just shoot up the river, and the sea lions don't have a chance. They're in front of them 1 second and they're gone. And the only time they ever really become catchable is when they're on the spawning beds in very shallow water, and that's where the bears come in.
Right.
But now with dams and fish ladders, right? So the salmon hit the dam, then they have to line up in a sense to get into the fish ladder. So they're there in a holding pattern, and the sea lions have figured that out. So that's, they say, yeah, this is where to hang out. This is picking. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, literally.
If we were to somehow create a scale of the most pressured fish based on the number of top predators that are going after them, I would have to say, you might agree or maybe disagree, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, salmon has to be at the top of that list. They have more apex predators after them than any other fish, in my opinion.
Well, in a sense, you're probably right, because you got these big fish that can get up to 100 pounds swimming up these rivers that get increasingly smaller as they get into the smaller and smaller tributaries, until they're in maybe 3-4 inches of water on gravel beds, where they finally do their spawning activity, build their nest, drop their eggs. The males come in, fertilize the eggs, and then they die. And so it's a super huge race for these fish to get to that size where they can do this, and they're really good. They grow fast. I mean, they grow 5 years, they can get to 100 pounds. It's crazy. Yeah. And so they need a lot of food. These are like the Frankenfish that were made naturally. They just grow, and they eat a lot of fish. They eat a lot of prey to get to fuel that. So they have to go for the prey, and they're fish on steroids in every sense of the word. They're just super fast, super smart, and super tough, and then they die. But are they? The thing is, we know that they've done studies, they've done surveys using sonar. Scientists at the University Vancouver have gone in there, and they've done research about the Chinook. How many Chinook are really coming into the Fraser and down into the southern part of British Columbia? Are they really disappearing that much? And they find them. They find them everywhere. There's the spring salmon, the winter salmon. You have, I think there's 4 different runs of Chinook salmon over the course of the year, different times of the year, and they are there. They are there. You talk to the fisher, the people who fish for them. They're having tremendous fishing success this year, last year too. And they say, they don't want to fish around killer whales though, because as soon as the killer whales show up, the fish all panic and scatter. 1 minute they're all sort of, hanging out, just cruising along, and very catchable. And then in the next minute, it's like, oh my God, the killer whales are here. Take cover. And they scatter. And they say, as soon as the killer whales come around, they just haul in their, they haul in their cannonballs and pull in their lines and move. There's no point fishing anymore.
No.
So it's been, to say that they're competing with the killer whales, you get this impression that you got these, dozens and dozens of recreational fishing boats, just circling schools of salmon, and there's no way for the killer whales to get into there and get their share of the fish. That's not the case. It's not the case.
So, with this all being said, obviously there's a concern for the balance. What is being proposed? What's being tabled right now to somehow protect or contradict this concern for the orcas? Are we as recreational anglers going to have to give up our catch? Are commercial vessels going to be downsizing their quota? How's this all going to work?
Well, they've been starting 3 years ago. They've been introducing these no fishing areas, right? These sanctuary kind of areas where they say, okay, this is a common killer whale feeding territory. So, and they usually show up here in, let's say, July. So for 6 weeks, no one can fish here, and then over here and over there, and these, it's announced in the spring, usually just before the salmon fishing season starts, and then the government introduces these closures, and there's all sorts of, oh no, lots of broken hearts and lots of frustration and lots of publicity, negative publicity. And, a lot of people are disappointed. People have made plans to come to these fishing lodges, to hire outfitters. People who own boats have, booked their hotels, for the opener. And all of a sudden it's closed, right? And it's been spreading like a little cancer, these little no fishing zones. And they seem to be repeated year after year. They're not taking them away. They keep adding them or expanding them or making them longer. And I think the government has said, every spring we go through this cycle of research, announcements, defending our announcements, and all sorts of negative publicity. So it looks like what they want to do now is just say, let's introduce some no fish zones. Let's make sure they're as long as they need to be.
Okay.
And let's make them permanent or indeterminate until we have the science that says we can lift them.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't sound promising, and it sounds like is it? Well, it sounds like it's going to be both commercial and recreational anglers that are hit with this.
Yeah, they're lumped together. They are lumped together. So if it's commercial and recreational, usually goes together. They don't distinguish between the two. They do, right, but they don't. And so yeah, it's lumped together. And the other thing is, whereas before some of these closures were, maybe July to the end of August. And, because the specific runs are concerned with, now they're thinking maybe it should be like June to November. So there's going to be more of them. And in total, we're talking about 25% of the recreational fishing opportunities in British Columbia for salmon, 25%. But because most of the anglers are in the southern part of the province, and because most of the closures are going to take place in the southern part of the province, that's where it's being impacted mainly. It's in the southern part, where, southern part of Vancouver Island, southern part of British Columbia, where most people live, is where the closures are going to be introduced. We saw this in California 10 years ago. I wrote an article about it for Outdoor Canada magazine 10 years ago, where California came in and said, we're having problems with the salmon. We're having problems with fish here and there and everywhere. So we're going to, we've got a lot of pressure from people saying, you got to do something about this, So the government said, yeah, let's just put in a temporary closure for recreational fishing, and then we'll do the science. In 5 years, we'll decide what we're going to do. So 5 years comes, and the government says, you know what? We haven't finished the science. We're just getting started on the science. So we need another 5 years. So 5 more years going to come, And now it's 10 years where massive stretches of the coast of California, 10-year period comes, and the government just says, you know what? We don't have the money. California's strapped for cash. We don't have the money. We didn't do the research. And turns out we're just not going to. There's just no fishing. And it's been like that ever since.
And really, like, how are you helping, maintain and build your angling industry?
Not
by closing fisheries like this. And
No.
I understand there's some science that warrants it, but in a case like this, it's also about management, and what are we doing to properly manage it? Now, I know closing it is so final, and it's so drastic, and it's so definitive, and in some cases isn't always the best idea. But when it comes to keeping the economy, the fishing economy, the angling economy going, this is not the way we do it.
No, and some estimates say it's worth maybe in Canada for salmon fishing alone recreationally, it's worth maybe $1.3 billion a year of activity, and it's others are saying, look, they're laying off. They don't have the enforcement people anymore. There's very few of them around. They cut back on their creek walkers, people hired to walk the creeks to count the fish. Those contracts were all cut, and then there was some pushback on that, and now they're hiring a few. And I'm going to be talking to someone about that too, so there'll be podcasts coming out on that as well shortly. And they don't have the money, so it's in one sense they're saying we can save some money by just saying no fishing. And we can also get some political, maybe score some points politically amongst the environmental groups that say, well, look, here's this government, maybe they've done a good thing here for the orcas. But have they addressed the true problem? Have they addressed the true problem?
I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows. I just think it's just too easy to close the fishery. I think anyway, but
yeah,
I don't want to, what is it? We listen and we don't judge. I don't want to judge. But I will say this, talking to my colleague today, he was most intrigued to hear that our Great Lakes salmon fishery is in such great health and in such great shape. Mm-hmm. And I said, tonight we're going to be talking about the West Coast. Well, what's going on the West Coast? I said, not much.
But that's not quite true. And here's why. We talked about this a few years ago about the interception of Canadian salmon, right? Our salmon head up, the smolts come down the river, they head into the ocean, they head north, they go off into international waters off the coast of Alaska, between Alaska and Siberia, and they go out there and they live for 2 or 3 years, and then they come back to the coast, and then they swim back down the coastline back to Canada, or past Canada into Washington and Oregon and California. But before they have a chance to do that, the commercial fish boats up in Alaska, they know these salmon are coming back. They know they're going to be as big as they're ever going to be when they come back and start heading south. And they know exactly where to catch them, just along the shore. The fish follow the shore.
Right.
So they wait there and they catch them. And it's got so bad that conservation groups and angling groups in Canada have been saying to the government, you got to do something. They're catching all our fish. Up there. Do something. Negotiate something. And, that's been going on. And then they went on to Ocean Wise and said, you can't keep calling these fish caught in Alaska as sustainable. You got to say they're not. And Ocean Wise finally agreed, yeah, they're not. Marine Stewardship Council is looking into this as well. And then some environmental groups down in the U.S. went to court, and the judge said, yeah, this has got to stop. So this judge in the United States implemented a 6-week closure of a certain area of salmon fishing in Alaska, wow. Which means for the last 2 years, this year and the year before, the salmon have been hitting the coastline and heading south without being intercepted by Alaskan commercial boats. And the fishing has been extraordinary. The numbers of fish have been outstanding. Fish have been going all the way to California, and they've been having salmon fishing for the first time in years in California.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Well, this is a great story then. This is good.
Oh yeah, this is good. So Chinook and huge numbers. I was talking to one guy. He said, we were having fun. We said, how many seconds after we put the cannonball down? How many seconds is it going to take before we get another hit? And the most that would go maybe 60 seconds before they get another hit. And people are getting big fish, big numbers. We've heard about the sockeye, 6 million, 7 million sockeye running up the Fraser River. The pink salmon heading into Port Alberni, one of the best runs ever.
Yeah.
Just tremendous runs of fish heading up the rivers this year and last year. It's just amazing. So they've opened up some extra seasons and they've added some retention for the recreational fishers. Because there's so many fish, they've added some more activity for the commercial fishers. It's been just like, oh, this is the way it was. Some people are saying it hasn't been this good in 40 years. 40 years of fishing.
That's fantastic news. So
yeah,
really, I guess I have to ask, as I'm sure some folks are still listening and saying, so what's the problem then?
The problem is if you're going to say, why are these southern killer whales still dying in numbers? What is it? What's causing them to die? Okay, so you have three different sort of categories of killer whales. You have the resident killer whales that love to eat Chinook salmon. That's what they love to eat on, and they're not really resident. They're just resident for the season, and then they push off and they go somewhere else. And a lot of times, they don't even know where they go. Then you have killer whales that are red meat eaters. So they're eating seals and sea lions and things like that. They don't eat salmon. They're eating red meat. And then you have the other killer whales that eat shark. And you can tell them by their teeth are all worn down from chewing through the tough skin of the shark. But there's not as many of those. But there is, and we never hear about these northern resident killer whales in British Columbia. And they live off the north end of Vancouver Island, and their numbers are growing every year. They're expanding, and their territory is expanding further south. And some people say they're actually now, you would think these two types of resident whales are cousins, same sort of species, same sort of appetite, so on, but they're not friendly to each other. They don't get along. So the northern residents are pushing south because their numbers are growing, and they have to find new territory. And they're pushing south, and they're encroaching on the southern killer whales territory. So their territory is shrinking.
Oh boy.
So there's that. But if there's enough salmon in the south, and we know there are, science tells us there are, and we know, these fish, the angler reports all the fish and, being caught, it's tremendous. So what is it? And some people are saying, well, look where they're eating. Look where they're eating the fish. And these fish, maybe they're not that healthy. Maybe they're hanging around in a part of the ocean where the water is more polluted. Now we know that rubber tire dust from highways how they make tires for cars and trucks. It has a bunch of chemicals, and one of them is super highly toxic for fish. So that's one up. Another one is PFAS chemicals, microplastics, on and on and on. And if the salmon in the south are getting biomassing this because they're coming in and they're eating, even as they go up the river to spawn, they're still eating. Just before they head up, they're eating like crazy. So they're eating from a forage base that's local. And that forage base has bioaccumulated a lot of this toxins. And then it goes into the big salmon, and they're bioaccumulating these toxins. And then the killer whales eat the salmon, and they're bioaccumulating these toxins. And then all of a sudden, the fish are gone up the river, and the killer whales step back, and maybe they go on a big, trip somewhere to go to their next range, their winter range. So as they're traveling south in the fall, they're depending on their fatty deposits to nourish themselves as they're heading south. So now all that bioaccumulated toxins are released back into their bloodstream as they eat their own, survive on their own fat, right? And now they get a big charge of chemicals being released into their bloodstream, and that gets into their milk, and that's they're feeding their babies, and the babies then end up getting sick. Now, normally 50% of killer whale babies die in nature anyways, but now it's much higher so what's the difference between the northern killer whale residents and the southern killer whale residents? The ones in the north are eating fish and forage. that's not toxic, right? And the ones in the south are.
Interesting. So that becomes an even bigger problem for the killer whales because, of course, that just accumulates in their fatty tissue. The more of that they wow.
Not an easy problem to solve, though, is it? I mean, we're having
not
the
an
same
easy problem, but did we ever do one of these roller coasters? Like that sounds fantastic, and all of a sudden we're back down.
Yeah, but look, we're having the same problem with our salmon and our fish in the Great Lakes, right?
Right.
We cleaned up the DDT and the PCB and the mercury. We get all that under control. Now we got PCBs and plastics and pharmaceuticals and all those other things and PFAS chemicals, all sorts of other things now, right? That's being so. We're where we have a lot of intensive activity, human activity in industry, we're having these issues. So, but it's not an easy one to solve. It's easier just to say no one's going fishing here.
Well,
no one's going fishing here.
I mean, we look back to the industrial age back in the 70s when Lake Erie was considered a dead lake.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we need to learn from our mistakes. And I've said this before, we continue to pollute this planet to the point where we're going to be the canary in the gold mine. And, I think we're already at that stage when we're seeing instances of cancer and illness, mysterious illnesses crop up. You can't rule out pollution. Pollution is likely a good cause of all this. So,
So is it the number of fish, or is it the health of the fish that's causing the problems?
Interesting.
And if it's the health of the fish, if it's the health of the forage, the quality of the forage they're eating, then that's a problem that can't easily be solved.
No.
Is it the noise that they can't hunt because of all the noise? You're not going to stop the freighters from coming in. You're not going to stop the ferries. No. You're not going to stop the yachts and all the the millionaires on their $1 million yachts from coming. You're not stopping any of that. Yeah. So, you pick on the little guy, and everyone, points to look at those people out there competing with those killer whales, stealing their food. Take them down, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not an easy place to live, not an easy place to be an angler to begin with. And then, of course, you have all this added drama because of, everybody trying to find the perfect balance. And I don't know that there is one. I do hope we find one, or at least one that's close enough. But it seems like the salmon and the West Coast salmon are forever in our news feeds. It's forever in your segment, and we talk about them on the regular. And it's so concerning.
And there's always these pieces of the puzzle that we don't know, right?
Exactly.
And because there's such a lack of transparency.
Exactly.
About and you have these consultations taking place, and no one's not allowed to talk about what they talk about. They have to sign in camera, non-disclosure agreements. If you got into one of these meetings, you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. So no one really knows what they're talking about. And the angler groups and the commercial groups aren't invited to those meetings anyways. So they're not even included.
Wow.
So that's problematic. So they're feeling left out, and they're saying, hey, we got solutions. And you just got to try them and work with us. Like, you remember we talked about, using GPS on the boats to say, look, that here, killer whales are here. Send the signal out. Everyone gets the update on their phone, onto their system and on an app, and says, okay, the killer whales are over there. We can't go over there. We have to stay, 5 kilometers away. So we'll fish over here.
Exactly.
We've been asking for that for years off the West Coast, and nothing.
Wow.
Crickets. They're doing it in Oregon now, and it's fantastic. It's working out so well. Yeah.
So you have a bunch of upcoming interviews with these folks, and
I just did one this afternoon, and so that'll be out. I'm going to get that out ASAP. That's the BC Recreational Anglers Association, and they've got they are mobilizing all the communities up and down the coast of British Columbia with Facebook pages and Facebook groups, and they've got tens of thousands of followers and all these different groups. So they're mobilizing people and educating people on what's happening, and just getting the information out there, and so people can start to maybe write some letters, right? And petitions and so on, and at least get the word out. We talked about this last week, that survey they did of conservationists and environmentalists and anglers, and they discovered that 50% of the anglers identified as conservationists, right? So we're not the enemy. We're looking for the solution.
You wouldn't think so. You wouldn't think so. But at times we don't do ourselves a lot of favors. I mean, we saw it yesterday, this past weekend, just with golf, where people are asking for, better conduct. And I think we almost need to draw that line in the sand sooner than later to make sure that we can identify what good people are and how they're supposed to act, whether they're fishing, whether they're golfing, whether they're just, walking down the street. But yeah, no, it's definitely a concern. Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
What else have you got any other time to work on anything else?
Oh yeah. They're just interesting to note, we opened the North Cod fishery this past summer, right? And now they're talking about in Europe maybe putting a permanent ban on fishing cod on their side of the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they're running into trouble. They're consistently over harvesting.
Wow.
And the numbers are dropping 35%, 50% over 5 years, over 10 years, in terms of school size. So they're saying, hey, we're overdoing it. So we're sort of we stuck our toe in the water and we're opening the fishery. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully that'll go well. And just, lots of news for sure. The newsletter came out last week. You can, send an email to Bluefish Canada, and we'll get you on the list if you want to get the newsletter. And and just go on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and listen to the podcasts.
Very cool.
Yeah, listen to I'm just a voice, for these people, and they're asking me to give it voice, but you should listen to the people themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look forward to it, buddy. As always, our segment flies by, but you've filled that half hour. You've chock-filled that half hour with a topic that never seems to have an ending. And from just talking to you, seems like it's going to go on for a very long time. And that is the plight of the West Coast salmon and the fishery as a whole. So.
And then just a little heads up, listen to the podcast with Gail and Mark from the BC Recreational Fishing Association, because we also talk about what's happening in the northern part of the province, where they're stringing together a whole series of marine conservation areas and how that's impacting recreational fishing.
Well, we look forward to it. We can only hope that it's impacting them in a good way. In the meantime, Lawrence, I want to say thank you for joining us as you do each and every Monday, for getting your nose to the grindstone and getting us this kind of news that isn't going to make mainstream necessarily. You dig deep and you reach wide, and we're thankful for that. But keep up the great work.
Oh, it's nice to know there's an audience out there for this sort of stuff. We got to stick together, and
Amen.
And educate ourselves. Yeah.
Amen. Yeah. Right on, dude. Well, have yourself a great week. We will see you next Monday. And thanks for all you do.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for letting me come on and tell this stuff.
Right
Appreciate
on.
it.
We got Jay Barnucz coming up right after a word from his sponsor. Take care, Lawrence.
You too.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
Jay, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Just having some technical difficulties. I don't know why it's not switching over.
All right.
Why is it not switching? There we go. Finally. Okay. Yeah, missed you. I tell you, it seems like just yesterday we were rubbing shoulders up in Spanish, and then we both went our separate ways in different directions. You came home and had been extremely busy. You had another event this weekend that you're going to tell us about. But before we get to that, we were talking about it before we went live. I have never seen a trout perch. I don't think I've ever even heard of a trout perch. I asked Mike, same thing. He says, "Yeah, I think we've had to approve some of those submissions in the fish off." But I'm going to lean to you because it was a remarkable colored fish. not something I typically have seen in the past, but it was awesome to see the level of species that were being caught, this being one of them. And you're going to tell us a little bit about the trout perch.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting that you bring this up. So trout perch, it's actually a fairly common, and I believe it's classified as a bait fish or an acceptable bait fish. And what you see here, Scotty, and I'm going to try and zoom this picture in a bit. So this this is a trout perch, and how you know it's a trout perch is a couple things. One, it's a benthic feeder, so it's a benthivore, and so it feeds on the bottom of the lake. And I'll talk about distribution in a minute because I think people will be surprised how broad this is distributed across Canada. But when you're looking at it here, you got sort of a sloped head, so feeding on the bottom is kind of where it's usually found. It's got pretty large scales and it's got spots along it. But why they call it a trout perch, it's kind of a slang name, is because it has an adipose fin right here.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a member of the order Perciformes, which in taxonomic terms, so when we're classifying things scientifically, it's in the same order as bass and so sunfishes and percids, so walleye, yellow perch. So it's in the same order as those, but it's the only one. It's the only one in its genus Percopsis in Canada. And I'm going to show you the map. This is from iNaturalist.
Holy crap, they are everywhere.
Yeah. So now the way iNaturalist works is these hot squares are actually confirmed records of trout perch, and then this sort of outlined area is the suggested range based on distribution information from other sources.
Right.
But yeah, this is it. And even in Southern Ontario, I'm going to zoom in here. So you can see it's found. There's been records here along Lake Erie, but I've seen it in the Thames River. I've seen it in, like, I've seen it up in, where is it here? Like up in this area of Quebec.
Right.
I've seen it in reservoirs up there. So it's a very, I'm not going to say it's abundant. It's a little bit of a cryptic fish. Like, it's kind of, again, you won't see them very often. In fact, one thing about them is that when I do come across them, sometimes when we do surveys using a seine net along beaches, we do surveys both at day and at night. And because when you do surveys at night, you'll get nocturnal species that become more active.
Right.
And so if you want to do a comprehensive survey of different species in a lake, it's good to do sampling at night if it's safe to do so.
Right.
And so when we've done surveys along Lake Erie after dark, trout perch is one that shows up, but it won't show up typically during the day. So yeah, and it's found like throughout the sort of Midwest here. And there is another species. It's actually kind of funny you bring this up. So I thought, well, I wonder what else is related to trout perch. This one's called a sand roller. And a sand roller is found in, let me see if I can find the map here. It's actually found in, right here. It's found in Washington and Oregon.
Oh, wow.
So these are the only two fish in that genus, Percopsis. So just like when I talk about genus, I'm going to talk about like Micropterus is the genus for smallmouth and largemouth bass. So in the Percopsis genus, there's only two in North America, and one of them is the trout perch. So there you go.
Now, that trout perch looked a little bit different, and I know one of the other pictures that you had up, because you could see the defining spots. Yeah, that picture, that top one.
Yeah, so this one here. Yeah, this is typically the one that we'll see. Yeah, so it's got really pronounced spots, and now when I catch these fish in turbid systems, like in the Thames River, where the turbidity is literally millimeters of clarity, they're quite bleached out. Their spots are not very obvious, but I'm going to guess that in French River, Georgian Bay, those waters, those clear waters, that these spots are going to be very pronounced in the fish. So Whereas this one here is probably typically more the one that I'll see in Southern Ontario.
Right.
The spots aren't as pronounced. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Oh, look at this. Look at that, George. Wow. Using genetics and stable isotope analysis, we found that at least 10% of the Lake Nipissing walleye diet is trout perch.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's really neat. So what they do is, and what George is talking about there is, we can take bait species. So in like Lake Nipissing, you know, what George is talking about is they probably took a bunch of different bait species: emerald shiner, spot-tail shiner, smelt, trout perch, yellow perch. And what they do is different fish will have a different unique chemical signature. So using an isotope such as a derivative of nitrogen or carbon, and then what will happen is that you take your walleye, you grind up the meat, and you run the same analysis. And I can take a piece of walleye meat and say, this meat has the same chemical signature as these other species. So I know what chemicals from what species went into making that walleye. So how isotopes are important is we can understand the food web. This is so important for managing fisheries, because if we know that 10% of the diet is trout perch, that's a lot of trout perch, right?
Amen.
If we know that 30% is spot-tail shiner, that's even more important, right? So we can help manage fisheries by understanding basically the ecology. So there you go.
Fascinating stuff. And anybody who is like me and has never heard of trout perch, you just got the 411 from our good friend Jason, Encyclopedia Britannica, Barnucz. No, that's awesome, dude. I really appreciate that, because, as I said, when it got brought up, it had three distinctive circles. I don't want to say spots, but there were spots inside those circles. Yeah. And when we looked at a log perch, which I think is what initially we thought it was,
yeah,
we could see that it was definitely not that. And it was actually Jeff right away. He said it was a trout perch right away. And by its definition, and of course the examples you've just provided, you just confirmed what he already knew.
And really, it doesn't look like anything else. Like it doesn't look like a trout. It doesn't look like a perch. We know.
Yeah,
it's a very unique looking fish. And so when you see it, if you're not familiar with it, it's very new and fresh. But if you have seen them once, it's like you should never ask again. You'll always know what it is, right? Is it? And that little adipose fin is important, because we know that for the vast majority of fish that we talk about, it's trout and salmon species that have adipose fins. Smelt will have an adipose fin. Whitefish, ciscos have adipose, but they're all part of that salmonid family that have adipose fins. But the trout perch is not a salmonid; it is a member of the perciforms. So there you go.
Well done, as always, Jay.
Yeah.
I have to ask you this question, because you've been out on the water. You've been on kayaks. You've been in big water. In the kayak, and I have to ask, with all of the fish that you've caught, have you ever had a fish show up as you were reeling in another, or perhaps were just reeling in your bait, and something came up that was absolutely massive that scared you?
Oh, I wouldn't say scared me. More, I actually, where we were fishing on Sunday, I saw something really cool, and it actually, Trevor and I pondered this for a while. There's a reservoir that we fish locally called Deer Creek, and it has it's deep, it's about 30 feet deep, a lot of deep water in Deer Creek, very clear. Now there are trout in Deer Creek, and now they stock rainbows in there. So there's bass and there's trout. There are a few northern pike in there now. There's bluegill and crappie and yellow perch. But the trout that are in there are unique, because there's rainbow trout, which have been stocked in there for recreation. But there's also they're not native, sorry, but like resident brown trout in the Deer Creek watershed, which is part of Big Creek. And I know that anglers will catch the occasional brown in the deep waters of Deer Creek. And because Deer Creek is so deep, you'll get stratification. You'll get a thermocline, and guys will troll baits for trout. Well, while we were out fishing on Sunday, and I'll talk about what we did out there. It's kind of a cool experience. But while we were out there, it's flat calm. It was glass calm on Sunday, and this is about 10 o'clock in the morning, bright bluebird sky, and I'm coming down the middle of the reservoir, and I'm in 35 feet of water, and I got my Garmin on, and I'm side scanning, and I'm marking fish at the thermocline, and I'm thinking they're trout. And then all of a sudden, as I'm coming along, I can see look like minnows on the surface, kind of like just dippling. And all of a sudden, I saw a little fin like swipe at minnows, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. It's not a bass. And I'm like, bluegills kind of do that. And then all of a sudden, right beside the kayak, like an 18-inch plus brown trout swam right, like clear, because it's like an aquarium there, swam right past me. And I'm like, and I could count the spots on it. It was beautiful. And I'm like, damn, these brown trout are feeding. And I've heard guys catching brown trout on flies off the top in 30 feet of water in this place. I've never tried it, but now I want to go. I said to Trevor, we should get some of our Algonquin rods out and go drag some lead core in there next weekend. Try and catch a brown trout. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be very cool. Very, very cool.
I
have a picture here.
Nothing big though, Scotty. Nothing that I'd be scared of. But dude, I'm a sucker for social media videos of these guys getting tailed by great white sharks and other things. Holy crap.
Oh, yeah. You're not kidding. I just want to share a picture that Jeanette just sent us, and I'm going to get your fish identification skills. I want to say that is a trout perch based on what I'm seeing there.
Yeah, man. That's a trout perch all day. Absolutely. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the reason I brought up, thanks, Jeanette, for that. Really appreciate that. And now you know what your fish are eating. So I had an interesting story. Tim and Art told me. They were on the boat with Mark. They were reeling in a 4-inch, let's say a crankbait. I don't even know what they were using. And suddenly this head appears, and it was a very large muskie. And it scared both Art and Tim. It was that big. And when it came up, fierce looking fish, big eyes.
Yeah.
And it just, again, it goes to show that you just never know. And big water holds big fish. We had a follow last year that Ian had that the muskie was enormous. Then we had this situation where it came up. It intrigues me to know that there's fish that big still in our systems.
Yeah. It's and I've had conversations recently with some anglers locally here that were talking about we're seeing more and more of these big muskies showing up in different parts of the Great Lakes, specifically Long Point. And the anglers are kind of curious about what that means. And to me, when I hear about these big apex predators like muskellunge, and the fact that something's going on in Long Point, and I mean this in a positive way. Usually when I say that, it's negative, but this is positive. There's more and more anglers encountering big muskies in the sort of central basin of Lake Erie, right? So we know they're in the Niagara, we know they're in the Detroit, but the further away you get from those two places into the middle of Lake Erie, there's usually less muskies. Now, Long Point has a lot of great habitat for, I would think, muskies, because northern pike do very well in Long Point and have for generations. And now there's more and more muskies showing up, and not just large adults, but juveniles. And a lot of local anglers aren't familiar with muskies, and so there's an education happening right now because we know with muskellunge, I believe in zone 19, which is Lake Erie, you can't keep one under 40 inches. I think that's like the trophy rule.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, some anglers keep them because they don't know what they are. They think they're just a funny colored northern pike. So there's an education at foot here. And so anglers have been asking me what it means for these fish to be there. And I said it's a positive. Like you have an ecosystem that can sustain large muskies, and several muskies have been documented in that 40, 50-inch class. We're talking St. Clair class, Great Lakes muskies. And I think it's great. I think it's great that they're showing up here. I think that they're, there's a new fishery developing here for them. So anglers can come down to Long Point, Turkey Point, Port Dover. But just the ecosystem itself tells me that they can sustain. And when we read about this, when we talk about, marine systems where we have large sharks and other large predators, when we have areas that can sustain those things, that means something. And I think that also means something for Long Point right now. It's very cool.
That is very cool. Unfortunately, we do have some bad news to share. You know a heck of a lot more about this than I do, but it is all going to end up as being a bit of a PSA announcement, something that we do talk about at great length here, but it needs to be spoken about a little bit more because I do believe we lost somebody from our kayak community this past weekend.
Yeah, I'm gonna share a photo here of the young man. Not to raise too much light on it, but so this is Peyton Hughes, and Peyton Hughes was fishing in the Bassmaster Kayak Series event on Toledo Bend last weekend while he was supposed to. So he was out fishing with his buddy on Thursday. They fished separately, and they were to meet up Thursday at the end of the day, and Peyton didn't come back. Later that night or in the evening, Texas Park and Wildlife found Peyton's kayak, and then on the Friday morning, they recovered Peyton from the reservoir. And so this has really taken the fishing community, especially the kayak community, by storm. There's been a lot of good messages. Peyton, if you go to his Instagram account, he's a very avid angler, college angler from, I believe, South Carolina. And, I think we don't know for sure what happened with Peyton. It's suspected that it was probably not wearing a PFD. And I think that's been the message from a lot of the anglers coming out right now. So I think it's just a good opportunity to, just remind anglers to wear your life jacket, wear your PFD. And I know that you don't need to wear it. Now, if you are using an inflatable PFD,
yeah,
you have to wear it if it's the only one in your vessel. Now, if you have the old standard PFDs in the box and you have inflatables in there, you don't have to wear it either because you have the old style. But the new inflatables, if that's all you have, you do have to wear them. I wear mine all the time. Heather and I talked about this on the weekend when I told her about this young man. And, Heather said, she goes, in our house, it's not even an option. Like, we go on the water, we wear a PFD. Like,
yeah.
I've walked into Tim Hortons with my PFD on. Like, I've literally backed the truck out, pulled the kayaks out, or even the workboat out. There's a Tim Hortons down the street, and I'm in the drive-thru or I'm going in the store, and I still have it on. Like, I just wear it all the time, and I always encourage people to get used to being like that, like, because you never know what can happen. One of the leading causes of drowning in adult men is urinating over the side of a boat. One of the leading causes of drowning.
I believe that.
And
I mean, it's shocking, but I believe that.
And number one, you don't have to do that. You could pee into a bucket, which is the safer thing to do. Or the old, Grandpa George had a Javex bottle with a slot cut in the side, right? Like that. Yep. That's what I grew up using. But having your PFD on is so important. And I tell people too, like, spend the money on it. Take care of that inflatable. Don't leave it in your boat. I see a lot of people who leave them in their lockers, and the mildew and the moisture can cause it to deteriorate or even go off.
Right.
And at that point, you have to change the cartridge, and those are costly. It can be. So I tell people, like, when you get home at the end of your trip, hang it in the garage. You put your rods in the garage. You put your bag of gear in the garage, and hang your PFD in the garage, and then take it with you when you go again. And it's a great one-time investment. If you need it, it's there for you. Just take care of it. So yeah, I can't stress about how important it is to wear your PFD, especially when, I don't know, I have a big pet peeve with making sure that especially young people wear their life jackets because they don't know better. They need good examples set. And I realize that, people may not agree with me on that, but that's so important to me. So, and I like to make sure that that's resonated with others when I talk to them. So, yeah,
this is a great point, Brian, and great point that you're bringing up. It's so true. At the end of the day, and I see this happen a lot where people stumble. They may not know what the setting is on their trolling motor.
Yeah,
they kick it on, and all of a sudden they're off balance. We have seen lots of videos lately of boats that are unmanned, running around harbors, running around in the docks, other boats.
Yeah,
we know this is happening more often than we care to talk about, but it's again another reason why we stress it. That stuff like this has to be reminded because it can happen that quick. It's like when we were told to wear a seatbelt, just get used to putting the PO. Yep, 100%. I like it though too, and Jay, you touched on it a little bit when parents, and sometimes parents can be over the top. Sometimes maybe they're absent-minded and don't even think. But case in point, this weekend, Brooklyn, it was made very clear by the owners that after a certain age, child has to wear PFD while on the dock. Yeah. Brooklyn had no issues with that. She literally just took it off for a second, but Tracy reminded her, "Yep, you got to have it," because they run a business. Yeah. They don't want to, God forbid we have someone drown, but then it could have a lasting effect on their business. So it's tough to tell someone to wear one. Yeah, maybe you can help us on how we do that.
I think when it comes to kids, start them young. I'll tell you that with our kids, we let them pick out their life jackets, and usually, I'll tell you, the only regret I have with Trevor's original life jacket is I never kept it because that thing got pretty fishy, man. That thing caught a lot of fish. It was a Lightning McQueen Cars life jacket.
No way.
Yeah. And we have such great pictures of that life jacket. And honestly, I get a little teary. Think I should have hung it up. It should be hanging right up here.
Right.
Because that life jacket caught so many fish. And he was so good about wearing it. Now, he did love cars. He was big into cars when he was this is 7 or 8 year old Trevor. But we'd go to a cottage and he would, he knew the rule. You couldn't go on the dock without your life jacket.
Yeah.
And so we would that kid, he had to be near the water all the time. Ever since he was 2 or 3, Trevor had to be near the water. If he wasn't fishing, he was throwing stones in. He just needed to be on the water. He would run up to us with his life jacket and be like, "Put it on." And he would want us to, remember the old crotch strap? You'd have to put it through the crotch.
Yeah.
He would be like, "Dress me. I want to go on the dock, and I need to go right now, but you need to put my life jacket on." He was it was in his brain from 8 years old or younger even. I'd say actually there's pictures of him probably 4 and 5 years old with that life jacket on. It's amazing. So yeah, and I think that if you can get it into kids and let them pick out their PFD so they want to wear it, and then they don't know any different. Like now it's funny. I bought Stephanie a PFD, and so with the kayak style life jackets, if you don't wear the inflatables, the fishing ones are kind of cool because you got pockets, right? So I keep tools and I keep my phone, and Stephanie puts snacks, so she and Heather too, they like their snack pockets. So when we go out in the boat, they got snack pockets. So when I bought them their we all have matching PFDs. The girls are all about, I can put snacks in this pocket and snacks in this pocket. So they're not worried about I got to keep my pliers and my cutters and my wacky rig tool. No. They're all about having snacks in there. So get something that you're going to wear, be practical about it, and then you can go with the inflatables. They're not as practical. They don't have pockets, but on hot days, they're nice to wear. You get used to wearing them. And there's ones now I'm not going to say cheap out because I'm happy if you wear one, right? Yeah. But with the inflatables, you have 3 different styles. You have old pull cord where you have to pull it. Then there's the automatic ones, which have a little Alka-Seltzer tablet. So when it dissolves, there's a firing pin, and the pin fires through the tablet. So when the tablet dissolves, the pin fires into the cartridge, and that inflates the life jacket. Now, it also has a pull cord on it as well. And then, but the best one to get, and they're the most expensive. There can be around $250 to $300, but they're hydrostatic. And so what that means is there's a pressure sensor in the technology, so that if it gets wet, it won't go off. Because if the automatic ones get wet in the boat, they could just go off.
Right.
Even on a rainy day. In fact, at work, if we're setting nets and we get it wet, it will go off if we get it too wet. So the hydrostatic ones are nice because it senses water pressure. So it senses that you're in the water. And I think it has about a 3 to 5 second delay. So if you drop it in the lake, you have a few seconds to pick it up. I've dropped mine in before and it hasn't gone off. It's gotten wet, but not gone off.
Gotcha.
But then it will go off, after about 3 to 5 seconds. So basically it assumes that you're in the water for a period of time, and it needs to go off now. So I think that's pretty smart technology. And so folks know the cartridge system does need a bit of maintenance. There's usually a green or red tab that shows. So if it's green, it's still good. So you should be checking that to make sure that it's still green. So if you're going to buy, let's say you're going to buy a couple of these for you and your partner, buy at least one backup cartridge and keep it in your boat. And so if it does go off and you do fall in, you can basically put a new cartridge in and zip it back up again. So yeah, I think it's just about, I think when it comes to adults, unfortunately, I think sometimes they have to be scared into wearing some of these things.
Yep.
Right. So it was like that with seatbelts. And George's analogy with seatbelts is very valid.
100%.
Seatbelts, when they became illegal to not wear it, people didn't like being forced to wear them. But I could remember being in a car accident when I was 16, and it wasn't a terrible accident, but I remember being pretty shy about cars for a while after that. And I was happy that I had my seatbelt on when I was in the accident, and I was happy to have and I wanted to wear a seatbelt after that all the time. Right. So, and I think that even as adults, we just have to get used to wearing them. I'm happy that in tournaments, when we do tournaments, whether it be a kayak tournament or a bass tournament or a walleye tournament, everyone's got to have their life jackets. Like when you guys did boat checks up on the Spanish, life jackets mandatory, kill switch is mandatory, lights mandatory. All those kinds of things are so important. And I think that these checks that we do for boat checks for events, these should be checks done every morning. Let's be honest, buddy. What we're doing is we're making anglers do what they should be doing anyways. We're just making them do it because there's an event on the line, right? 100%. But really, we should be doing it every time we go out, regardless. So,
couldn't agree more. Well said, Jay. Not to rush you by any means, but I'm sure you might have one more topic that you wanted to mention before we leave you.
Yeah, I'm going to do two quick ones here. Actually, this one came across my desk, and I think that it's important to bring up. And I don't know a lot about the history of it, but this is a Facebook post that was shared to me this week. This is Ken Collins. And now Ken is an avid fly guide on the Saugeen River and a bunch of other rivers. Ken usually presents at the Toronto Sportsman Show at the Fish TV stage. Yep, and so I've presented alongside Ken. I'm either right in front of him or right after him, and I get to talk to Ken every year. He's a great angler. And what I realized this week, and this picture, I don't know if this will show up. Yeah, there we go. So I didn't even realize this was a thing. So right now on the Saugeen River, as of September 30th, bass, so smallmouth bass, muskellunge, lake sturgeon, northern pike, walleye, and sauger, they all close.
Wow.
That's a new regulation for the Saugeen. So largemouth and smallmouth closes September 30th. Muskie closes September 30th. Northern pike September 30th. Walleye and sauger September 30th. I know a bunch of guys. Now, I fished the Saugeen in the fall for bass. I also know a bunch of anglers that target muskie in the Saugeen in the fall. I didn't realize. Now, I realize that these river populations are very fragile. It takes a long time to grow. We talked about apex predators. It takes a long time to grow a big predator in a river.
Right.
And so I assume that this new regulations in place to protect those populations, but it's the first I've heard of it. So I see the value in it, but it's a little disappointing to see that on paper like that. So I hope that I hope to hear more about that in the future, but yeah, that kind of came out of left field. I didn't know that was a thing that was going to happen this year. So
interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Wow.
So just that's kind of an FYI to CFNers out there that if you're going to fish the Saugeen this fall, like I'll go up there and fish for steelhead like I like to, but yeah, that's kind of a bummer that all those species close September 30th.
And I haven't seen anybody really talking about it.
No, I think I saw Ken's post and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because I've done lots of work. Last couple of years, I've done a bunch of work on the Saugeen, and I would run into Ken on I'd be going down the river. I was doing a bunch of mapping. And I'd run into Ken in his drift boat guiding, and I'd say hi to him like around anywhere, whether I was up in Walkerton or Paisley or all the little towns along the Saugeen. Ken's everywhere. And I was like, wow, I never knew this was coming up. Usually the anglers are a little more vocal about these things. 100%. So yeah, didn't happen. So
interesting.
Anyways, hopefully I get to find out more about what's going on with that. But yeah, the last thing I want to talk about, just to kind of give a shout out to the Erie Junior Bassmasters. Trevor is kind of a recent graduate of that program. He didn't fish much the tournaments the last couple of years because he's kind of been aging out. But we've been helping with that club with the events like the qualifier and that. And I know a lot of the kids look up to Trevor a lot. And so I suggested to Trevor, I said, hey man, we should do a day out, invite some of the kids out. And I know a lot of the dads fish and they kayaks or canoes. So we went to that's why we were at Deer Creek on Sunday. And a couple of the kids came out, and Cody Colfax, his son Chase, that kid's a character. I love that kid. He is one. That kid loves fishing. It is unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
And we showed them some of our favorite water on Deer Creek, and we talked about different baits we use. And Isaac was the other kid that was there with his dad in a canoe. And Isaac and Chase had never used a swim jig. And I've talked about swim jigs on this show a lot. Jim and I talk about swim jigs. Like, we love throwing swim jigs. And why swim jigs are great for kids is if you want to catch big largemouth, you just basically take a flipping jig and put a swim bait trailer on it. You throw it out and you reel it in. And you reel it slow, let that swim bait sashay back and forth. But what's cool is it's like an all-terrain vehicle, man. You can work it through trees. You can work it over vegetation, through vegetation. And so Chase was asking me about the swim jig. So he came over to my kayak, and I'm like, here, I'll rig you one up. So I got out one of my swim jigs and put a trailer on it. And he caught a largemouth on it like right away. And his dad told me that he'll probably never stop talking about swim jigs until next year. So, and then I ran into Isaac later in the day because we didn't fish by the boys all day. Like we'd meet up. It's a big reservoir, so we meet up. And Isaac at the end of the day told Trevor and I that he got like a 4-pounder on a swim jig. So I'm like, that's awesome. So yeah, that was great. And looking at this weather forecast, and Deer Creek's open till Thanksgiving. So I think and there's a couple of boys, a shout out to, I know Miles, he wanted to come out. He couldn't make it. So I think we're going to try and do another trip this weekend down there. And Trevor is working on a really cool video pattern. Like he's working on a video now about a pattern where he's using glide baits for largemouth. and which is kind of like a kind of a US thing. You don't hear as much about glide baits. I know some guys are experimenting with glide baits more and more, and so it's been pretty cool. And I don't know jack about glide baits, so Trevor is teaching me about glide baits right now, which is really neat. Yeah, that's kind of like, I just love these full circle conversations I have with my son, where it's like, wow, I'm learning crap from him now, which is fantastic. So cool. Yeah, so hopefully we'll get a big largemouth on a glide bait this weekend too, as we kind of figure that out. So yeah, we and dude, enjoy the weather, man.
Amen.
Like we don't have any rain. There's things to complain about, but we can still go fishing. So let's just go, right?
Amen, brother. Couldn't have said it better myself, and a heck of a way to end your segment and our time with you. But as always, Jay, I can't thank you enough for all you do and all you've done to get us to where we are. And as I said, you continue to give to our community, and we can't thank you enough for it.
Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you next week, if not sooner.
Dude, you take care of yourself, Jay. All the best. Enjoy the weekend. And that is the end of our show. It has come to an end. Believe it or not, it's been 2 hours. Thanks so much for all of you who have joined us, all the ones that have left some great comments. And for those who share, at the end of the day, we want to build the algorithm. We want to build the viewership. And, of course, we want to continue spreading all of this wonderful content when it comes to Canadian fishing to the eyes and ears of those who want it the most. In the meantime, guys, we have a show coming up on Wednesday. I do have to reach out to a certain somebody to make sure that they are aware that we're going to be talking on Wednesday. So I will say we will have a show Wednesday, just not sure if this special guest is going to join us or not, to talk about some great things, including some upcoming dates of the Made in Canada Tackle Show, as well as some very cool ideas on how, as a tackle producer here in Canada, you can save a little bit of money when it comes to shipping and sourcing some of your components. So all that and much, much more on Wednesday. We will see you there at 8 o'clock, Danny and I. In the meantime, have yourselves a great week. Enjoy the weather. As Jay said, it is going to be absolutely spectacular this weekend when it comes to weather. So get out there and enjoy these last remaining weekends of summer. And the fish are longing for your attention. Dave, it's come to the end. It's time to take us away. Have yourselves a great week. Love you all. Peace.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.